believe it or not, I actually feel bad for athletes because they have to be extremely careful with what they say. If they say the wrong thing, they can lose sponsorships. You know, you have this illusion that, oh, well, they have free speech. They can kneel whenever they want on the national anthem. But the reality is, like, no, they have to play based on the establishment's politics. Like, you get the vibe of what the establishment needs you to say, and you have to parrot that. Like, you gotta read the newspapers articles, you gotta read the CNNs, you gotta read the Guardian, and then say exactly what they tell you to say, because otherwise you're in big, big trouble. It's kind of funny I say that because a couple of years ago there was this athlete and he was asked about something of the LGBT flag, like some nonsense, and he's like, well, I can't answer that because if I answer that, I'm in big, big trouble. Big trouble. Big, big trouble. I can't answer it. And you have like all these journalists that are aggressive, cheeky little shits. Like they know this, and they just ask the athletes the questions anyway because they want to get the right answers. You know, like all of this is supposed to gaslight the public that the establishment's opinions are widely believed. Like even athletes agree with them, actors agree with them, journalists agree with them, right? And if you disagree with the establishment's opinions, you're just a fringe extremist lunatic. But it does seem like it's coming to an end. It does seem like even the athletes are taking a stand, and they are so fed up with this establishment's ideology that they are answering back to these cheeky little shits journalists. Let's listen to this guy, and I think he said something very interesting here.
Hey Joe, Ben School with Yahoo Sports. For the first time since 1970. Hey Joe, Ben School with Yahoo Sports. For the first time since 1975, this is the NBA Finals where you have two black head coaches. Given the plight sometimes of black head coaches in the NBA, do you think this is a significant moment? Do you take pride in this? How do you view this, or do you not see it at all?
I wonder how many of those are been Christian coaches.
David Aldridge?
Fascinating, isn't it, right? So Yahoo News gets the opportunity to ask this guy a question, and they could ask him about his game, they could ask him about how he felt in the previous matches, how he feels about the season, asks the most relevant question to the sport: what do you think about the black coaches? In NBA, right, where literally most of the players are black, right? Like, the Yahoo News guy's like, well, yeah, but like, it's not everywhere. It's not everywhere, and that's a problem. But now I guess we have finally made history. Kids in the future are going to read in the history books on the fact that in 2024 there are two black coaches. How do you feel about it? And you know he has to respond the correct thing. Like, he has to speak the speech. He has to say, oh, yes, like, this is excellent. I am totally amazed. You know, my little daughter has always wanted to have black coaches, and now her dream has finally come through, and she's in tears, right? Like, this is what the journalist expected. But what he didn't expect is that football players and NBA players and most athletes are getting well-versed in wokeness. And it's not that they disagree with the ideology, they think it's clinically insane. So they're basically saying, all right, well, how many of them are Christian coaches? Because they know, like, the cheeky little shit of a journalist, like, can't say anything to that, right? Like, this is what I notice with a lot of woke individuals. They are trained what to say. Like, they don't think for themselves. So when something like this happens, when they're put on the spot and they're asked a question that they never encountered before, they short circuit. Now, I'm sure that if other football players would constantly ask the same question, eventually one of the woke opinion influencers will give an answer to it, and then they will all start parroting that answer. But until the update comes, until the firmware update is deployed, all of them are just bewildered. They do not know what to say. They do not know how to respond to this. So it's beautiful to see, but it's also beautiful to see that athletes who have everything to lose are willing to risk it all. And they're actually willing to say, okay, well, how many of them are Christian coaches? And it's, you know, like, it's also a brilliant question because Christianity is an ideology. Like, it's a way of viewing the world. It's kind of like saying being woke, right? Like there are so many assumptions that flow from that, and it's the same thing when you say, well, he's a Christian. Like, I know a lot of assumptions that just flow from the fact that he's a Christian, and it tells me more about the person if you tell me what ideology they have than what skin color they have. So, for instance, I would much rather have a neighbor that is of any other ideology or race or creed that you have someone that's woke. But that's insufferable. I remember like reading an article. I think it was from the LA Times where there was this female journalist, and she was livid that her neighbor, which is a Trump supporter, plowed the snow from in front of her yard. And the reason she was livid about it is because he made a kind gesture, and now it's more difficult for her to be angry at him. And it's like, she doesn't know the dude, doesn't talk with the dude, but the dude just did a kind gesture by helping her out, and now she is livid because it's like, well, yeah, but like, this is how they get you. This is how they make you hate them less. And it's like, wow, imagine living your world like that. And the question is like, why would I want such a person as my neighbor? Like, what if my house catches fire and I need help? Like, representation matters, they keep saying, but like, representation based on what? Like, genetics, skin color? That's not really a thing. Like, in fact, ideology, like knowing your neighbor is a Christian, is much bigger of a thing than just knowing, oh yeah, your neighbor is Romanian. I mean, okay, I guess, that's interesting, but like, if it's a Romanian communist or a Romanian woke person, I would rather not have him as my neighbor. Like, I would rather move in a different neighborhood, So yeah, it's also due to the Bud Light boycott. It's also due to the Target boycott. It's like a lot of boycotts that happened last year. And on top of this, you also have the elections in the European Union, and now you have athletes that are coming out and they're speaking against it. And I genuinely and unironically think that we are seeing the peak of wokeness. We are seeing the peak of this nonsense, and there may be a change. Now, I don't know if the change is going to revert us back to the 90s and we're going to have the same period as we used to. A lot of elements from wokeness are going to be maintained, especially tactics and stuff, but I do think that the ideology at least is going to change. And we are going to see a new era, as they like to say. It's also very important to see who wins the American presidential election, because that, in itself is not going to change much within the United States in necessarily in a political fashion, but it will change much in the way people think. Because the biggest thing that wokeness does is to make people feel alone and isolated. And what they hate is when they see that actually you're not alone. Well, actually, look at what happened to Bud Light. Look at what's happening with the European elections. And, if the American elections also end up with the Republicans winning, then people will definitely not feel alone and isolated. And they will get a little bit more courage to actually speak what's on their mind. So let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.